Frederick Ogden Nash was born in Rye, New York. Before becoming a poet, Nash sold bonds, gave lectures, and worked as an editor for The New Yorker. During his literary career, he wrote over 400 pieces of comic verse. His first verse was published in The New Yorker in 1930. The following year, he published his first collection of humorous verse titled Hard Lines. His other collections of poems include Freewheeling, Happy Days, The Primrose Path, The Bad Parents' Garden of Verse, I'm a Stranger Here Myself, and Everyone But Thee and Me. His poems are best known for their unconventional rhyme scheme and humor. The poem The Tale of Custard the Dragon was originally published in 1936. It gives a humorous account of a cowardly dragon named Custard who saves the lives of Belinda and her pet animals when a pirate threatens them. Let's see what happens in The Tale of Custard the Dragon by Ogden Nash. Belinda lived in a little white house. She lived with a little black kitten called Ink, a grey mouse called Blink, a brave yellow dog called Mustard, and a cowardly pet dragon called Custard. She also had a little red wagon. Now, Custard had sharp teeth. Spikes grew out of his back. His skin was covered with scales, and he had long knife-like toes. He could also breathe fire, but all he wanted was a safe cage for himself. Belinda, Ink, Blink, and Mustard all considered themselves very brave. So, when Custard, a fierce-looking dragon, cried for a cage, they did not spare him. Belinda tickled him. Ink, Blink, and Mustard rudely called him names. They all laughed at Custard, the cowardly dragon. Belinda laughed so hard it shook the house. Blink giggled. Ink and Mustard rudely called Custard old. But Custard only cried for a cage. Suddenly they heard a sound. Belinda cried out. There was a pirate climbing in the window. The pirate looked mean. He had 2 pistols in his hand. Between his teeth, he held a sharp knife. He also had a black beard and a wooden leg. It was clear he was there to do them harm. Belinda cried for help. Mustard fled. Ink climbed down the house, and Blink ran into a mouse hole. But Custard sprang up to confront the pirate. The pirate stopped at the sight of the dragon. He took a sip from his bottle and fired 2 bullets at Custard. But the bullets did not harm Custard. He simply ate the pirate. Now Belinda hugged him. Mustard licked him in affection. Ink and Blink danced around Custard. No one cried for the pirate. But then Mustard said he could have been twice as brave if he hadn't been surprised. Ink and Blink also said they could have been thrice as brave. Custard agreed and said that everyone was braver than him. Belinda still lives in her little white house with Ink, Blink, Mustard, and Custard. She, Ink, Blink, and Mustard still consider themselves brave. And Custard still cries for a nice, safe cage. Now, let us look at the literary elements of the poem, The Tale of the Custard the Dragon. The poem is in the form of a ballad, a long poem usually set to music. Nash uses this form to narrate the tale of Custard the dragon and how he defeats a pirate. There are several instances of simile in a poem. The phrases sharp as mustard, mouth like a firepiece, as brave as a barrel full of bears, brave as a tiger in a cage, shouting like an engine, and clashed his tail like iron in a dungeon are examples of simile in the poem. Through this device, Nash creates humorous descriptions of the characters in the poem. Nash uses repetition at various points in the poem to create a rhythmical effect in the poem. He also uses it to build humor in the poem. The word weck is an example of onomatopoeia in the poem, where the word mimics the sound of a rat's giggle. Similarly, the word clatter, clank, and jangling are examples of onomatopoeia in the poem. When a poet disregards the rules of language, he uses poetic license in his works. The words realio, trulio, and weck are made up of words that Nash uses to impart humor to the poem. Through this, he practices poetic license. Also, he has changed window to winda to maintain the rhyme scheme of the poem. The line "Belinda is as brave as a barrel full of bears" is an example of alliteration in the poem. While Nash uses a 4-line rhyme scheme for all stanzas, he uses 6 lines for stanza 13. Let's look at the first stanza. In these lines, the words house and mouse rhyme. So do wagon and dragon. So, if we assign A to house and B to wagon, then the rhyme scheme of the poem is AA, BB. Now let's look at the 13th stanza. In this stanza, mustard, flustered, blink, think, agree, and me rhyme with each other. Let's assign A to flustered and mustard, B to blink and think, and C to agree and me. So, the rhyme scheme for this stanza is AA, BB, CC. This poem is in the form of a light verse, a poem which uses humor to convey a message. Through the poem, the poet shows how a crisis can reveal the character of a person.